You good to go?
We are. All right, team. How are we going? We are back with the podcast. Today we're coming to you with Funky Friday. We've got our little mascots here, the unicorn, and Knoxy. What the hell's going on with your hair, mate?
I'm just wearing my sick Dreadies beanie, which I completely forgot I had. But when you were like, let's do Funky Friday, I was like, sick.
Well, it is, I guess, being a bit silly on a Friday, supporting a West Coast Eagles team is probably a bit silly this year. So,
oh yeah, no, it's beyond silly at the moment, but you know,
yeah, that's it. So yeah, man, we're back with the podcast today, and we're talking about priorities, man. And I know you're an absolute, gun with this stuff, and it's something that you really love to help your clients understand, purely because it's a massive thing. And if essentially, we all know, if you don't have your priorities right, things don't happen. And so what's your sort of take on it, man?
Well, I've obviously had a lot of coaches and mentors over the last probably 10 years in terms of my own personal development. And I've done coaching courses and things like that, and personal development, stuff, PD, as you call it in the space. I think a big thing I've found is that a lot of the time, everything can come back to what you actually prioritize, right? So like, I don't know the Latin meaning and all that sort of stuff, like straight out of the dictionary, but essentially when you are prioritizing things, like you said, you're bound to like put energy towards it, and you're bound to put effort into it, and you're bound to put action towards making that, target or goal happen by prioritizing it, right? I mean, if you wanted to be the cleanest person on the planet in terms of body hygiene, for example, you would prioritize having probably 16 showers a day. You'd carry a thing of soap around with you all day. You'd have, deodorant on you, right? Like that's like a really hypothetical, silly version. Yes, it is Funky Friday, but if that makes sense, you can really liken that back to anything, right? Like if you want to be the next LeBron James, you're going to prioritize hard work when it comes to training for basketball, right? Like you're going to prioritize hard work of, putting in the hours to train how to run up and down a court, how to be stronger in your jumping, like all these sorts of things. Like without making that choice to prioritize it, cool. You're going to let your little 9-to-5 job get in the way. You're going to let your best mate's marriage, divorce get in the way because you get involved with it, or whatever the case may be, so like all these sorts of things happen. But yeah, that's probably the big reason why I wanted to chat about it today, because a lot of my clients this week have been, struggling with work things or just stresses of everyday life. And when it comes down to, did you get your training done or did you follow your food this week? The common question I'm always asking is like, well, was it actually in your top 3 priorities each day? Like when you woke up, was it top 3? And again, if you can be honest, yes or no, you're going to be able to fix the problem if there is one. Yeah.
Absolutely, man. And it's almost those standards you hold yourself to. It's like, if you accept the standard of poor health, you're going to have poor health. If you accept the standard of, you're not going to be showered for less than 3 minutes a day, that's the standard you're going to hold yourself to. And it's really important making that distinction. And I like what you said there, man, is like, is it actually in your top 3 priorities? Is it important? Because if it's not, it's just not going to happen.
Yeah. And I think the big thing with that is it's like, you've just got to become probably vulnerable and just like aware of the fact that it's okay for stuff to not be in your priorities, but you have to be aware of it. Like, because if you let it go by the wayside, like anything else, you're just not going to put energy into it and you're not going to get it done. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely, man. And sort of, I know you break it down into like a list of priorities, and you've got a really cool way of explaining like a triangle of the pyramid of priorities. How do you sort of go about that, man?
Yeah, so a really good analogy that I got told by one of my coaches a couple of years back, before I got into my bodybuilding last year, was using the triangle of priorities, right? So essentially the way that he put it was, obviously we know a triangle's got its 3 points, right? So there's 3 components to our priorities in life, which really dumbed down and super simplified. It pretty much comes down to career being one of the points. Now, again, that's anything job related, anything income related. So putting money in your pocket or food on the table, so to speak, job, all that sort of stuff, you know, trying to get promotions, anything sort of work or business related to do with you growing that side of your life. That's kind of in that career kind of point. The second thing that we want to look at then is relationships. Now, again, this isn't just with, you know, getting a girlfriend or boyfriend or whatever. It's your interactions socially with and intimately, you know, depending on the person that it is, with, you know, friends, family, people you work with, people that you know, pass in the street, you know, even just things like, do you ever say hello to people? Like, you can prioritize that and be one of the happiest mofos on the planet, or you can be a recluse and all that sort of thing. And then the final component is like listing your own self values. So mental and physical health. That's probably the easiest way to dumb down that third component, which is where we kind of look more internally. And that's where we kind of see, all right, what priorities do I focus on when it does come to me, not involving work and not involving other people yet.
Yeah, there's always two parts to necessity, and it's like those internal and external forces.
Exactly. Yeah.
And just being really, really hyper aware of it all, and being quite honest, isn't it?
Yeah, and
so
I mean,
maybe, man.
Yep.
Sorry.
Yeah, and I think the big thing is, like, you have to be honest with it. Like with anything in trying to better yourself, whether it is physical training, mental health, like all these sorts of things, you know, goal setting, whatever. Like, you have to be brutally honest with yourself, and it sucks.
Yep.
Like it's hurtful at times because you've got to be pretty hard on yourself, but you've also got to be understanding and vulnerable with yourself as well. Yeah.
One question, Noxy, man. Like, I know for a lot of people, you know, they do want to make it a priority, but you know, sometimes when we are extremely honest with ourselves and we are like a bit brutal, that turns into a lot of pressure. And is there a bit of a fine line between, you know, enough pressure to get you going and too much pressure where essentially you crack and crumble and it just doesn't happen in terms of your priorities? Like, how do you sort of ride that line, man?
I think, and I've follow a lot of influential people that are high-powered business people, or they're professional, you know, psychologists, or, you know, they give really in-depth content on things like Instagram and stuff like that. And it's content that helps me grow as a person as well, I find. So it's not just cat videos and things, although there are a fair few of those. But yeah, the reason I follow those sorts of people is there's some that I've found can be very harsh in their approach to prioritizing things. Like, if you didn't prioritize it, you're a piece of shit. And of course, you're not going to be a great business person. So like, go and do something else. And that approach, it can work for some people that do need to hear the hard word, and they just need that good old fashioned boot up the ass, as we say here in Oz. But then there's also the passionate approach and the compassionate approach, which is like using empathy to try and get through to the person as well. Because to a degree, you've got to understand, as we know, everyone's always going through shit, right? Like, there's always stresses, there's always, you know, troubles in life, and ups and downs, as we know.
Yeah.
And sometimes the yell and drill sergeant approach doesn't work. But the empathetic and understanding, without just letting them get away with it still, if that makes sense, because you can be empathetic, but also let people get away with shit. So that doesn't really serve them either, if that makes sense. So, I mean, you can still be empathetic, but get your point across and make sure they still go and change something or action something, or, you know, work on being better at something. Yeah.
That's massive, man. And I guess breaking down each side of the pyramid, man. Do you want to walk us through maybe, you know, the first component, and we'll go through each part of it?
Yeah, well, I mean, when I usually kind of have a bit of a process to this as well. Now, of course, you've got your three components on the triangle. You know, you've got your career, you've got relationships, and then you've got self. Before this, what I generally do with people, especially mums and dads, like if there's kids involved and they've got kids, I love to just ask them the straight up question. When you woke up today, what were the three most important things in your day? Oh, hang on.
You're still there?
6. Yeah, still here. Sorry, the phone was being weird. Yeah, so the first thing I love to just brutally ask people is like, what are the three most important things every day when you get up, right? Is it your own health and wellness? Is it your kids' health and wellness? Is it your job? Is it getting promoted? Is it, you know, your partner's health and wellness? Is it whatever? Like, what are the top 3 things that when you look at all the energy that you put out to the world or put into your day, right? So not just calories, but like what energy are you putting into stuff?
Yep.
Is your own physical and mental health in the top 10? And some people are just like, well, no, and you can see them trying to list off, kids, partner, making money, all this sort of stuff. Yeah. And then all of a sudden it's like, well, their own physical and mental health is just not even like probably top 20 for some of them. And then after having that question, it's like, well, if I was to put it to you this way, and that's when I lead into the triangle, all of a sudden they go, oh my God, yeah, I'm totally like completely business orientated. Like I'm literally on that corner. I'm not even anywhere near the center, which is nice balance and all this sort of stuff.
Yeah.
And that's where we can start to see, oh God, okay, I've got some work to do here. And again, it doesn't mean that they're a shit person or that they're completely unbalanced and they'll never be good, right, at, being in relationships or, their self-worth or anything like that. It just means that it brings awareness, right? And that's what we want to do first, is bring awareness to where you're currently at.
Yes.
Because now we've got a starting point. We've got some data to work with. Same as when you get a brand new client coming in and go, cool, what can you squat? Or can you squat, right? Like let's find that and then we can build from there. So it's the same thing with priorities, right? If we can attack it that way, I find it's really good because it keeps it simple, but it also gives you a really solid starting point. So when we look at
highlights,
and highlights,
our highlights like your identity,
yeah,
and we don't even realize, because most of the time all of the stuff is subconscious. We just on this, we just go about our day and we don't even realize until someone poses that question to you, like, hey, look, are you a priority for yourself? Oh shit, I'm actually not. No wonder. This is who I am, who I see myself on a subconscious level. Mm-hmm. No wonder my actual reality is something completely different than I thought it should be.
And I think the big thing with that is we've all heard, who's going to look after your kids if you're in a hospital bed, right? Like it's that age-old question of like, well, if you don't put yourself first ever, how do you ever expect to be either a good example for your kids or for your partner, or to be a strong, supportive partner, in times of need or struggle? Like if you're bedridden or on pills and medication or in a shit state of health and body, like how is that ever going to work? Like it's the definition of insanity, right? Like you're expecting a different outcome, but you're doing the same old shit, so.
Yeah, cool, man. And I guess in regards to this, man, have you had anyone that you've sort of worked through this process with that has found that helpful?
Yeah, so a lot of mums and dads. I mean, we've had the gym open for 4 years now, and as you can imagine, we've had over like 500 clients. So we've had amazing, weight loss results, strength results, and all this sort of thing. Yeah. But when we actually sit down and get their testimonials written, or we do like a bit of a video interview, I prefer to do video ones. I think it's fantastic just to hear the raw emotion that comes out of some people when they actually start speaking some truths. And the most common thing we find is people actually realize, I've achieved something, but it's not just weight loss. It's not just a strength goal. It's I'm actually a better person. I'm not a grumpy asshole all the time. I actually make better decisions just in day-to-day life. They're not stressed when they have to make a decision anymore, because they start to learn that, well, because I've worked on me for a bit, whether it's their, ability to show up to a meal plan every day and just track their food, or if it's the, consistency of just getting training done each week to move their bodies, right, and become that little bit better each week, they start to realize that it's like, well, I'm actually a better parent now because I'm not grumpy all the time. So I'm actually able to converse with my kids, right? I don't just blow my stack because I'm tired and stressed all the time because I never work on myself. That's probably a massive thing I've noticed, is like that ability to actually talk to their family members. I think that's been a massive thing we've seen, because they become aware of how disconnected they actually were. Even though they live under the same roof, they see each other every day, but they're not actually present. You know what I mean?
Yeah, and do you find, like, just in terms of that, like, it actually helps them stick to a health and fitness program better?
Yeah, of course.
Other stuff being taken care of.
Of course, because there's more value to it, right? There's more buy-in, so to speak. Like they may not have actually ended up spending any more money on their training or whatever. Like they're still paying their weekly rate or whatever. but
Yeah.
there's just so much more value and purpose and fulfillment out of the process of looking after themselves, because they're now able to look after others around them. They're now able to give more value to the people they love and enjoy spending time with. Yeah.
And they almost get that like sense of purpose coming back because they
Yeah.
see that impact that they've had. And I think that's so often the missing component. And people often go and looking for the magic bullet, and the magic bullet's often just having a good hard look at themselves and being like, shit, is this actually a priority?
Yeah, exactly. And because again, in our day and age, unfortunately, everyone's chasing the elusive dollar, right? So career is generally the number one thing that we have to work on, because we're so engrossed into it. Yeah, we're so engrossed on find the dollar, find more dollars. I'll put everything aside until I make more money, right? Like that's that driving purpose. And it's like, well, that's great. But if you've got $1 million in the bank, but you've got heart disease, bad livers, bad kidney function, you're 40, 50 kilos overweight, you're a grumpy, moody piece of crap every day that no one actually wants to be around.
Yeah.
Is the $1 million really worth it? No, not in my opinion. I don't see that as fulfillment and value driven. Yeah.
And there's a really great quote, and I please correct me if I'm wrong. I believe it's by the Buddha. And it's like, the healthy man wants a million things. The unhealthy man only wants one. Yeah. And it's so true. And it's something that I know for yourself, man, and I know for me is like, it's just a life purpose. That's why we do this is we want people to avoid that regret of knowing they could have done something. Yeah. And it all starts with this.
Yeah, and that's some deep shit, man. Like that hit me in the feels.
Yeah.
But like, I think, and again, it's another common conversation I have is it's like, did you know, like I've read studies about, people that are terminal patients, right? So they've either got cancer or whatever, and they're on their last legs and all this sort of stuff. And they do studies all the time to ask, certain questions like, do you have any regrets? Right. Like these guys have, sometimes got 24 hours to live. They've got 3 months to live. Like they've got an end date, which most of us don't know. And when they're put on the spot with that question, the most common thing is that they regret not spending more time being present with the people they love, because they were so driven to find a dollar. They were so driven to be the biggest physical specimen in the gym they could be, that they never talked to people. They never showed true love and fulfillment with their family and loved ones or their kids or whatever, or friends. Like these are sorts of regret. Like you hear that and you're like, holy crap, like that's a really powerful thing to hear. And it just makes you aware that like people that are in a pretty bad place can still show you a lot of stuff. Like they can show you, it's like, I've talked to homeless people before and they're like happy as crap living on the street. And I'm like, how does that work? And they're like, because I still get to say hi to people. I still have people that come and say hi to me. Like I go about my day. Yes, my life was shit and I lost my job and I'm living on the streets, but like I'm working towards it. I go to the shelter and I go to, AA meetings and all this. I'm just like, that's insane. Like someone that is literally on rock bottom can still find happiness day to day. And it's like, you see that and it's like, well, I've got opportunity. Like, what do I want to do with it? Like, that's something that means a lot more to me,
And I really think what you just said there to finish off, man, is like, we have the opportunity and we butcher it to a point, eh? And then, once again, it all comes down to like, is the opportunity to live a happy, full life, is that something either worth making a priority, or is it something you're just going to lie in your deathbed, unfortunately, and regret at some point?
Exactly. Yeah. And it's the cool thing is, and I think this is the best takeaway today, is that you have the chance to work on that again every day.
Yeah.
Like, I think on one of our calls yesterday, people were worried that they weren't getting the perfect post written, right? So they didn't write anything. And I was like, hey guys, just remember, there's an edit button. There's an edit button on everything, right? Like you have the opportunity to go back and change and fix stuff. Like, again, it's the same with training. It's the same with mental health. It's the same with, starting friendships with new people, new jobs. If you mess up one thing, we always have another opportunity to have another go tomorrow, right? Like that's probably the big thing today is like, when it comes to prioritizing things, just like everything else, you're not going to get it right today.
Yeah.
But at least you can become a bit more aware if you go, cool, what do I prioritize at the moment? And then from there you go, well, I'm really far towards career, or I'm really far towards being involved in everyone else's life, but I never look after myself, right? How can I bring myself back towards the middle of that triangle? Just have a bit more balance and fulfillment. I think that's probably the big message today. Yeah.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely massive, man. Once again, great chat, bro. Team, yeah, as you know, if you want to go and chase better and pursue that better life and make this stuff a bit of a priority, reach out to Knoxy and make sure you give us a comment and a like. And if you found this useful, please share it with anyone that you may think that could hear this and get some value, because ultimately that's why we're here, is to help people, maybe have that little flicker of like, hey, maybe we can have a little bit of a better life, and go chase their own better.
Yeah, big thing today, guys. In the comments, like, make sure if this is something that resonates with you and you'd love to talk further about it, drop me a comment. Like, I love chatting about this stuff every day of the week. It's fantastic, and you'll be amazed how much power it can give you for the rest of your days. Like, just by taking that 5 minutes, 30 seconds, whatever, to just have a bit more self-awareness. Yeah.
Massive, man. All right, man. Look forward to our next chat.
Awesome, brother. See you next week. Woo.